once you had a cancer diagnosis, try not to compare yourself to yourself before cancer. Often we do that, right? We say, oh, before cancer, I was able to do that. Before cancer, I looked like that. And it's something that really often wears us down. So instead of that, just look at the progress that you make and focus on the progress that you do and where you want to reach. And I think that will also be an important change in mindset that will help you along the way.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Voice of Cancer Patient Talks, a platform to empower the cancer community. Our guest speaker today is Isabel Galiano. So Isabel has been a cancer coach for almost 10 years, and she coaches cancer patients during and after cancer treatment to better cope with physical and emotional challenges that come with it. And Isabel is a certified nutrition and health coach, a functional medicine practitioner, yoga therapy teacher, certified in meditation, breathing techniques, and stress management. Isabel has survived breast cancer twice and has been cancer-free for 16 years. And you're also coaching cancer patients during and after treatments to cope better. First off, can you please elaborate on your personal experience with cancer? Because surviving breast cancer 2 times, it's heroic. And what made you embark on this journey of becoming a life coach?
Yes, sure. So, my journey really started first when my mother was diagnosed with cancer. That's now more than 20 years ago, and I was her main caregiver. And that's the first time I really realized, how much cancer actually impacts every single aspect of your life. And unfortunately, she passed away after 2 years. And 5 years actually after she passed, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And now it was me being the patient, so it's again a different role. But I think that it was really when I had a breast cancer recurrence 2 years after that this made a click, and that I decided to change careers, and that I really found the need to go much deeper and to have much better knowledge around health and how I could help myself. And that's how I started this journey. I started by becoming a yoga teacher, and then I went into nutrition, health coaching, and all the other certificates that I did. It was really about building a toolbox that would help me, but then I became very passionate in helping others, and I've been coaching now for almost 10 years.
So one of the main things, like anxiety cripples us all. Like in this fast-paced world, already there are a lot of issues which are already going on in everybody's lives. But add to that, especially cancer, like the emotional baggage that comes with it. How can people tackle this better?
Well, honestly, I believe that the most effective way to cope with stress and anxiety is really to work on your self-talk. That's like the first step, your self-talk. So it's really about, this inner voice that is constantly with you, and to really start being aware of it and how you talk to yourself. Are you talking to yourself in a positive way? Are you wearing you down? Are you motivating yourself? And I think that's really the first step. So it's all about, being aware of how you talk to yourself. And then it's about challenging that voice, saying, hey, wait a minute, why are you so negative? Is it really so negative? Is there another way of seeing this? How would you talk to a dear friend? Would you be so harsh to a dear friend? Would you be more uplifted with a dear friend? And then I would say, then it is also about trying to change this negative self-talk into something more positive. So that is for me always the first step. And then I would say the second one would be to really have a daily practice that will bring down your stress levels. And I think all of us should have that. So for me, for example, is walking in nature, or it's deep diaphragmatic breathing. And these are techniques that you can do 5 or 10 minutes a day, but having it on a daily basis to immediately, always have something that brings down your stress levels, I think that really makes a big difference.
Okay, that's brilliant. So you're saying more of like a morning routine?
Morning, I think the morning is always the best, because you kind of start the day on the right foot. But if morning doesn't work for you, if it's lunchtime, whatever time it is, just be consistent and stick to it. Don't wait until anxiety levels become very high. just do it on a daily basis as a maintenance, because then usually you will not get, you know, in those really stress and panic mode.
The next question for me is the gut microbiome fascinates me. Like the gut health has gained a lot of prominence over the years. Like people have talked a lot about it. So how can someone improve their gut health?
Well, I give a masterclass on gut health and it's 2.5 hours. So it says how much you can talk about gut health. But if I can start only with 2 simple advice, it's, you know, usually when I see my clients and they talk about gut health, they ask me, so what is the best probiotics I can take? So while supplements are good, I always believe that first you need to really work on your foundations. And your first foundation is your nutrition. So you first need to get your nutrition right. You know, eating the right foods, like, you know, eating a whole food diet, avoiding all the highly processed food, all the sugary foods. I think really that's what you have to start with, you know, having a lot of plant-based food, many colors, all the fibers in the food, which will bring the prebiotics to feed the gut bacteria. So I think it's first have a really good idea in terms of nutrition, what you need to put into place. And then the second aspect that many people really don't take that seriously in terms of microbiome is our stress levels. So you can have the perfect diet, but if you're constantly in fight or flight mode, it will be very difficult, you know, to have a healthy gut, because we do know that stress has a direct impact on our gut health. We know about the gut-brain axis. So you need to work on both sides, on your diet and on your stress levels.
Okay, that's a brilliant answer. So, so the next thing I wanted to ask was, I think a lot of our audience would also want to know, is that patients might feel a bit less sharp, like after such an overwhelming or a traumatic experience, like their sharpness and the way they pick up things, it might feel as if they're not catching on to things that quickly. So how can one improve that? Like how can one regain those problem solving skills or the mental acuity needed to keep up with this world?
Yes, so that's indeed a very common side effect, and is also very frustrated actually. So I would say to first make sleep your absolute priority. You know, you need to protect your sleep, because sleep is really essential for consolidating memories, for clearing the toxins from your brain. Without good, regular sleep, it's very difficult to be sharp, you know, and to enhance your memory. So start with that. And it's really when we sleep that we will enhance our mental sharpness. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is to exercise regularly, because physical activity really stimulates blood flow and oxygen delivery to the brain, which also enhances its function. So it's important, you know, to keep moving and to keep doing exercise. And then the third thing I would suggest is to really keep on challenging your brain. You know, do things like puzzles, like Sudoku, like whatever it is that challenges your brain. Because I see often with clients that they tend to say, you know, I can't read anymore. You know, I can't focus that much anymore. I used to do puzzles, but now I'm just too slow to do that. And they kind of give up and accept that their brain is not that sharp anymore. And I think that's a mistake. I think that it's the contrary that you should do. You should keep on challenging your brain and do things. And I would also always suggest to start by doing new things, something that you haven't done before. So you don't compare yourself to how you were before. Like, for example, learning a new language or starting something more artistic, you know, that you always wanted to try. Anything that keeps your brain stimulated is really important, because at the end, it's like a muscle. You know, if you don't work on it, if you don't stimulate it, it will slowly kind of decrease. And then, of course, I mean, diet plays an important role also in terms of brain. There are foods that will enhance our brain health, like omega-3, like antioxidant, B vitamin, zinc, and iron. And then there are foods that have a negative impact on our brain health, like, for example, the processed food and the sugary food. So that's also an important aspect. And then the last but not least is to be properly hydrated. Many people also forget that part. But the brain is really made out of 70% of water, and it needs to be hydrated. If you are dehydrated, even for any person being dehydrated, it will have a negative impact on their capacity to focus and on their concentration. So make sure you also drink enough water.
Okay, so to recapitulate for our audience, it's basically sleep, nutrition, hydration, and activity.
Exercise and brain exercise. So physical exercise and exercise for your brain.
Yeah, okay, that's brilliant. And so one of the more important things that for mothers, how difficult is this period? Like, what's the general thought process like for them? Like, according to your experiences, your 10-year experience, you must have encountered a lot of situations where mothers might be struggling to deal with those, again, that self-talk or the things that the repercussions that follow after cancer. So how
Yes,
is it
sure.
for
And
mothers?
I would say the majority of my clients that I coach one-on-one are actually young mothers. So I see them every day. And I would say that the common aspect is that the guilt is so much enhanced when you are a mother. So the guilt of being sick, the guilt of not being present, the guilt of not having that much energy, that really is an additional burden that young mothers carry. And then with that comes that, you know, as a mother, of course, and especially when you have young kids, you are drilled to put your kids in the first priority. That's your biology is constituted like that. And then, you know, to just start to make yourself the priority. It's often hard for young women, but it's a necessity. And it's something that I really emphasize a lot in my coaching sessions, is that now you are the priority, you know, and you need to learn to accept and to feel okay with that and to not have those feeling of guilt. It's also the moment where you should reach out for help and, you know, surround yourself with people who will support you.
Okay, that's great. For all the mothers in the audience, this is empowering because they know they're not alone, first of all.
Definitely. It's a very, very common symptoms, this feeling of guilt and to feel guilty to take care of themselves. But the best thing you can do for your children is to take care of yourself.
And again, so when I was browsing through your social media, and I saw your post with Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. So
yes,
yeah.
I was lucky enough to meet him when I was in London to do my functional medicine certificate.
Great. So I follow him, and his podcast with Eliud Kipchoge, who is a marathon runner, and like it was a brilliant insight. So like for segue into the next thing, how important is it to consume the right content during this time? Because we're in an age where doom scrolling is very normal in social media. Everybody's scrolling. The attention spans are lesser and lesser. So how important is to feed your brain with the right nutrition in terms of content?
I think it's crucial, but at the same time, it's really very difficult, to be honest, you know, because the temptations are there all the time. You know, we take the phone in our hand, we have hundreds of messages, we are, you know, tempted by scrolling, and it's kind of a never ending habit. So it's very difficult. And so what I always suggest is, you know, find a few people that you really trust and that makes sense for you, you know, that their philosophy resonates with you, that you feel, you know, that you get what they say and you are able to put that into place, and then try to stick to those, because it's very, very overwhelming, you know, when you want to read everything and when you try to keep up with everything out there, it's very difficult. And adding to that, you know, it's not always easy if you are not trained in nutrition, for example, to know what are the good sources, what are sources that are not really credible. So it's complicated, but I think that it's important to do that, and then also to kind of stay away from all the negativity that is online. I see often also my clients that kind of fall into groups where there is a lot of negativity, and it really affects them. So when, you know, you have that gut feeling, this is not something good for me, you know, it affects me in a negative way, you need to move away from it.
Now, this is more of your anecdotal experience. So can you list one of the experiences with the patient so that an audience can take inspiration, like one which stuck with you through this time?
Well, I would say, honestly, it's at the end of every single session. So it's that very clear feeling that the person feels significantly better at the end of the session than when the session started. And this is something that I feel very confident to say, and that really motivates me every day to continue doing what I do. And, you know, every session is different. Sometimes it's really about making somebody feel heard and understood. Sometimes it's about holding space to get rid of all the negative emotions that they are battling. And sometimes, and that's the part I like the most, it's really about creating a plan together. And you know what I like the most about coaching is that it's not me kind of giving them a list of to-do lists. It's really a team. We work as a team and we come up together with ideas. We do a plan together. So the fact that they start to realize that they are actually, you know, quite good at having ideas, that they feel themselves much more empowered, they feel much more motivated, and that's the best thing, I would say.
That feeling must be second to none.
It
so yeah.
is.
So like we're on to the last few questions. So like what is that one saying or one mantra you have lived by your entire incredible journey, like battling cancer? Twice, everything throughout. What was that one epiphany? What is that one thing which always made you stick to it, kept you rooted, kept you strong? Like this.
I would say that for me is that I do have the ability to control my thoughts. And it took me many years, you know, of getting there. But I think it's something that everybody can learn, starting with what I shared before about the self-talk. But I think that that's really my driving force. Whatever kind of comes to me, I always take a moment and say, and kind of challenge my thoughts and put my thoughts together. And that really has helped me all along this journey.
That's brilliant. And finally, like, what would be your message to the community for everyone watching, for anyone who is going through a tough time?
Well, I would say that, and I would love that somebody would have said that to me when I was going through cancer the first time around, especially that asking for help doesn't mean that you are weak, and it doesn't mean that you are a burden to others. That asking for help is actually a sign of courage, as it's a sign that you know your limits. It's a sign that you are willing to learn. It's a sign that you are willing to open up. I think that's probably the first message that I would have loved to hear and that I would tell to everybody. And then the second one is to really have a proactive role, you know, to become a proactive participant, an active participant in your healing journey. Instead of thinking, you know, that you just have to endure this, to really kind of stand up for yourself, get the knowledge out there, and become an active participant. Once you had a cancer diagnosis, you know, try not to compare yourself to yourself before cancer. Often we do that, right? We say, oh, before cancer, I was able to do that. Before cancer, I looked like that. And it's something that really often wears us down. So instead of that, just look at the progress that you make and focus on the progress that you do and, you know, where you want to reach. And I think that will also be an important change in mindset that will help you along the way.
That's brilliant. And okay, then let's wind this up, Isabel. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Most welcome.
This was so insightful. The audience must have picked up so many things.
And join me on my Instagram for those who are listening, in Isabel Galiano Coach. I would love to see you there too.
Yes, please. And thanks once again. And bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.